do you stop a meltdown? Dr.
How do you stop it? It's
Tymera
easier to
Hines,
avoid it than stop it, that's
psychologist.
for sure. And so what I would suggest is, and just speaking in general terms, is there are precursors to most behaviors. So some kids hum. I have one kid, he does this fish thing with his lips. And I already know it's about to go down. If he starts doing it, look like he does that, he is about now. And so if we can recognize some of those precursors, then we can start implementing, maybe sometime, if depending on the kid's communication level, we can implement full verbal models like, hey, say I need a break. Say, hey mom, this is too loud. Ask me for more. Oh, are you thirsty? Are you hungry? Are you bored? You want to be all done? So there's a couple different things you can do before you get to a meltdown. Because when you get to a meltdown is different than a tantrum. A tantrum is strictly, there's a function. Is it attention? Is it access to something? Is it escape? And we can figure out how to stop a tantrum. Because the way we stop a tantrum is giving you whatever the function of the tantrum is. So if you want access to something, here's the cookies, here's the iPad, tantrum stops. A meltdown is more emotional.
Ah.
So that's why it's so hard once a kid is experiencing a meltdown for it to come down, because it's more emotional. So think about a time when you've actually like cried and been upset, and you cry where it's like the sobbing crying. That may be how we express our meltdowns, as women, as adults. And it just doesn't stop like this. Just because someone comes to give us a hug and says, it's going to be all right, or what, you can just have that. It doesn't stop because it's emotional.
It's emotional.
And so we have to figure out in that moment how to provide emotional support. So some children like hugs, some don't. So figuring out what does your child respond best to that's emotional, because as I said before, if it was a tantrum, the function of a tantrum, if it's attention, you start giving a lot of attention, the tantrum stops. But if the deficit is emotion, if it's feeling based, then how do you give the feelings? How do you provide that emotional support during, is it a hug without talking? Because we can't say, what's wrong? Or you got to stop crying, or you got to take a deep breath. Because sometimes I look at parents and I think that you can't look at your child as someone who has autism. You have to look at your child as just a human being. And the best way to look at how to work with them is what would you want? So if you're going through your tantrum, because we go through tantrums, there's different ways, and your meltdown, what would you need someone telling you all the ways to calm down, all the ways you can feel better? Just squeeze your toy, just do this, or would you want someone to sit with you or hug you or hold you or provide pressure, input, or some type of sensory input, or just be? Sometimes we just want someone right there to say, I see you, and that's it.